Hello, welcome back. You're watching Breakfast with Nagamon Chetty and Charlie State.
It is 7:32 now. Any child in England whose parents receive universal credit will be able to claim free school meals from September next year.
Government says 500,000 more children will now be eligible for the scheme. Let's find out more with the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillips. And very good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning, Education Secretary. Could you just explain how this scheme will work?
Yes, absolutely. So what we're announcing today is that 500,000 more children will benefit from the expansion of free school meals. That means anyone in a household, whether in receipt of universal credit, will be eligible. At the moment, it's a much lower number of children that are eligible. That will lift 100,000 children out of poverty, because we know as a government it's absolutely essential that we do take action on child poverty. But alongside that, it will also make a really big difference to family finances. It will put £500 per child per year back into parents' pockets. And we also know it will boost children's behaviour at school, their ability to learn, their ability to get to school. And that will all make a really big difference. And this demonstrates a Labour government making different choices, backing children, backing families and addressing this really serious challenge we face as a country.
Can you explain a little more about how you will make sure that those who are eligible know they are and the children actually receive the benefit, that it receive the free school meals, the practicalities?
It will in many ways make it simpler than the situation we have at the moment. So schools collect the information about which parents, which children are eligible for free school meals on the current system. But that's where your household income is below £7,500 a year, but it can be a bit complicated for people to understand whether or not they're entitled. What we're doing is saying that all families in receipt of universal credit will be eligible. People know if they're receiving universal credit or not. They will have to work with the school to make sure that they can complete the information, which is part of the usual process anyway, and the schools will receive the funding to make that happen.
You would presumably agree that there will be children today, on a Thursday, going to school who are not adequately fed, which is affecting their education, and possibly many hundreds of thousands of them. You would agree with that, as in that is now?
Absolutely. We know that the levels of child poverty in our country are shamefully high. That's something that was left behind by the Conservative government, but we as a Labour government are determined to turn it around, and we're making different choices, not just on free school meals, also on new free breakfast clubs in our primary schools, increasing the minimum wage, cutting the cost of school uniform to parents, all practical measures that will support families, that will put more money back into their pockets, but will also deliver a reduction in the number of children growing up in poverty. It is the moral mission of this Labour government to bring down the numbers of children growing up in poverty, because it devastates their life chances. It holds them back, and I don't think where you're from should determine what you go on to achieve in life. But also for all of us as a country, we lose out on so many amazing people, on their talent and what they can offer, because poverty is a blight and it damages all of us. And the action that we're taking today will make a serious dent on those numbers in ensuring that more children do not grow up in poverty and they get the backing they need to go into school ready to learn.
But given what you've just said and the passion you feel about this, and the problem is you're making an announcement today, but as I understand it, this will not actually affect whether these children are hungry at school until September of 2026. So why not now?
That's right, and we're moving as quickly as we can because we do appreciate the urgency of the issue. But this isn't the only measure that we're taking. As I just said, there are a range of ways we're backing families, free breakfast clubs, the minimum wage.
Well, if I may, Bridget Phillips, and I'm just going to interrupt you there if I may. Sure. I'm sorry for being rude, but you said you understand the urgency of the situation, but there will be children today, next week, next year, for the bulk of next year, going to school who will not benefit from what you've announced today. So why can it not be brought in sooner? Can you just explain why it can't be brought in sooner?
We're working as quickly as we can because we do appreciate the urgency, but we also need to work with schools to make this change happen. We've got the Child Poverty Task Force that's also working on all of these issues. I'm leading that work with the Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall. So we are looking at every way that we can lift children out of poverty, that we can boost family incomes, and we can tackle this scourge. And we'll be setting out more detail later on this year. But we haven't waited around as a government to make change happen, even though we have faced some really difficult set of public finances in terms of, I think your viewers would recognise the state of the economy and where things were left. but we've made different choices as a Labour government. What I'm setting out today does demonstrate the difference that a Labour government is bringing, and it will be a game changer for parents. It really is a massive expansion in terms of the offer to parents. It's a big investment in our children's futures. And of course, this is not the only way we'll make change happen. We'll be setting out more later this year. And everything we're doing as a government is determined to back families, to make sure that all of our children get a brilliant start in life. And yes, that we tackle that terrible scourge of child poverty that really damages the life chances of far too many people across our country. Well,
you say you're moving with urgency as best you can. And yet people will look at the example of the winter fuel allowance, which all of a sudden, if I've got this right, you're going to be able to change by the winter, which is a matter of months. So you can move quickly on that issue, but not for children and their meals.
So on the winter fuel allowance, what both the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have said is that we do want to expand eligibility to more pensioners ahead of the winter, but we don't think it's right that, for example, millionaires receive the winter fuel allowance.
I'm asking you about the timing issue. The point I'm making to you is people will see the difference. This politically charged issue around winter fuel payments seems to have turned around remarkably quickly. By the winter, people will get these payments. Children who will not have those free school meals throughout the winter and the bulk of next year are not getting the same treatment. Why the difference?
So I was seeking to address just the backdrop to the winter fuel allowance first, just to explain the rationale. But in terms of the question you ask around timescale and how quickly we are moving, as I've said, we've set out so many ways that we're taking action right now to help children, but we do need to work with schools to implement and deliver that change. That's why we'll be bringing forward the expansion in September 2026. That will make a massive difference to children and their life chances. But alongside that, this autumn we'll be setting out the child poverty strategy that will also demonstrate this government's commitment to making sure that background doesn't determine what you go on to achieve in life. And child poverty sadly does not only scar the life chances of children, but it also determines what they can go on to achieve. I do feel really passionately about this, as you just said. I spent a good chunk of my childhood on free school meals. I spent a good chunk of my childhood not having a great deal in a single parent family. And I want us to move on as a country so that so many of the brilliant children and families that are listening to this today who want a government on their side, see a government on their side that is making the changes and the choices that will absolutely deliver that, so that everyone in our country can play their full part and that where you're from does not determine what you can go on to
Forgive
achieve.
me, I'm really interested in the practicalities here. A moment ago you told me all the schools know which children come from a home that is receiving universal credit. Am I missing something here? They know who these people are. They can tell you give them the money, it can happen. Which is the bit that can't happen quickly?
So what we're setting out is a change. So at the moment, it's families under a certain threshold who might be in receipt of universal credit but possibly aren't. We need alongside that to change the system to make sure that as we expand it, schools collect the information that we need. But also schools will have to expand, in some cases, capacity in order to deliver it. So this is, to give the extent of what we're announcing today, this is £1 billion investment over the course of the next few years into children and their life chances. But we do want to make it simpler for schools to gather some of that information. It's why we're looking at how we can improve some of that process, some of the ways in which we look at data and share data to make it simpler, because the system at the moment, part of the problem with it is that it is complex. We don't capture all of the children who might be eligible, or sometimes some people think they are eligible and it turns out that they're not. Expanding this to all families who are in receipt of universal credit is not just simpler, but it will also make sure that hardworking families, and I should point out that lots and lots of people on universal credit are working, and the majority of people who will benefit from this change are working families, will be able to now get free school meals eligibility, whereas previously they were having to pay for that. That's the difference of £500 per child per year. That is an enormous amount of money put directly back into parents' pockets.
Can I ask a very simple question, which is, are you currently considering changing your policy in relation to the two-child benefit cap?
Yes, we're considering all aspects of social security reform, including the two-child limit. We've always been clear about that. We've always said that it's on the table. It's not the only way we can tackle child poverty. There are lots of ways that we need to take action, and that's why through the Child Poverty Task Force, with Liz Kendall, the Work and Pensions Secretary, We're working as quickly as we can with campaigners, with charities and others, to think really seriously and carefully about that longer-term strategy and change that will make sure that fewer children in our country grow up in poverty. But yes, it's not a silver bullet, but it's on the table.
And just looking ahead, of course, there's a major fiscal event on Wednesday of next week. So could a decision about the two-child benefit cap be linked to that announcement?
So these are all questions for the Chancellor, as you'd appreciate, in terms of the decisions that we take.
Well, I'd ask her if she was speaking to me now, but
and she'd probably give you the same
are
answer.
a member of the Cabinet. You're a member of the Cabinet, so I'm asking you.
Absolutely. She would say what I'm going to say to you now, which is that the spending review will set out all of these decisions later next week. But where it comes to social security reform, that's a matter for the Child Poverty Task Force. We're going to report later on this year, so after the spending review, and we'll set out then all of the changes that we think need to happen to lift even more children out of poverty.
Bridget Phillipson, we thank you for your time this morning. Bridget Phillipson is the Education Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time now is exactly 5 minutes past 9. Charlie, you're taking a look at changes in government policy that have been announced.
Yes, significant changes as well. Free school meals are to be extended to all children in England whose families receive universal credit. It's thought the move, which will start in September of 2026, could benefit 500,000 children, but independent economists insist scrapping the two-child benefit cap would be a more cost-effective way to lift children out of poverty. Here's our education editor, Bramwyn Jeffries.
For every primary pupil in London, school meals are already free. They've been enjoying a hot meal a day during term time. Everywhere else in England, to claim free school meals, families now have to have an income less than £7,400 a year. From September 2026, that will change to all families on universal credit. Almost 500,000 more children will be eligible, a move welcomed by charities.
We know that there are children going to school at the moment without enough food. They don't have enough money for food. They might not be able to have an adequate packed lunch. And that is affecting their experiences of school life and making it much harder for them to get on and achieve at school.
If you want to just deal with child poverty, the most efficient way is to give families money. But this is about much, much more. This is about the £98 billion that we spend on diet-related disease. It's about the academic performance of children. It's about the culture in our school.
It comes as the government is under pressure over child poverty. Some Labour MPs and the Lib Dems want an end to the two-child benefit cap.
I asked him if he will keep the two-child benefit cap.
With a Conservative leader who wants to keep it, pressing the Prime Minister yesterday.
He is briefing something and causing a lot of confusion to the people out there.
It's not just London that gives every primary pupil a free school meal. The same is true in the whole of Wales. There's evidence it helps family budgets and children's education. But independent economists say lifting the two-child benefit cap would have a lower cost for each child lifted out of poverty. Bramwyn Jeffries, BBC News.